So why then are we investing so much time in reams of paper and business plans, loads of spreadsheets, hockey stick projections, right? All in support of the perfect plan A, when we know what happens to plan A, it doesn't work. Is there something wrong here? Randy and I think there is. And we think we have a solution. But first, question for you. Will LEG's idea work? What do you think, Alexandra? Well, it won't work. Why not? They don't need an ice cream glove? Why else? Why else? We just never really know whether a new idea will work. You know, Steve Jobs started a little company to market personal computers. I think he called it the Apple II. Did we all need Apple IIs? No? What were we going to do with it? How did he do? He did okay, right? So maybe LEG's idea will work. So the typical reaction to the entrepreneur proposing something new is, that's a pretty crazy idea, that'll never work. And in fact, most of the time plan A doesn't. So is there a solution to this flawed process that would give us some real data from real customers about real products that might lead us to a real solution? Okay. Let me see if I understand the business modeling approach that you learn here in a terrific program like Do Future. Okay? Yeah, and the university. Okay, is this step one? Step two? Make some assumptions, right? Because you need assumptions. Do you know this acronym? Silly, wild ass guess. Step three, we have to tweak the assumptions, right? Because we know it's supposed to look like a hockey stick, and the first time it doesn't. So we fiddle around with the assumptions until it looks like a hockey stick, and then voila, a couple of cases of beer, a couple of long nights, and you're rich. Is that right? Is that how the process works here? I know it's how it works in London, so I think it's probably the same here. So what can you do? You could turn off Excel, and you could think instead in terms of the 5 building blocks that are in every business model. So you can think about, what's my revenue model? Who's going to pay? How much are they going to pay? How often are they going to pay? What will it cost me to get them in the door so they pay? All the questions that are necessary to figure out how much revenue are we really going to get into this business. You can think about your gross margin model. What's going to be the difference in cost between what I send out the door and what comes back from the customer? You can think about your operating model. All the other costs, besides cost of goods sold, that it takes to stay in business until you get to break-even cash flow. You can think about your working capital model, the timing with which the money comes in. Do you get money from your customers before they buy their stuff, or do they pay you later? Things like that. And finally, your investment model. Okay, so I'd like to talk with you about just sort of 2 core ideas from the book. The first one is a process, where you can start with a plan A, however imperfect it may be, and get from plan A to a plan B that has a good chance to work. And then I want to come back and talk about these 5 elements in the process. So I'm going to talk about the process with this company. You know this company, right? We all know this company, Apple, right? What was Apple selling 10 years ago, Maria? Computers, yeah. Did Apple's customers like their computers? They loved them, right? Were they selling a lot of computers?
No.
Very small market share, okay? Low single digits. Was Apple making any money 10 years ago? Really struggling, barely making money. Apple was in trouble. Steve Jobs had just come back into the company, and he said, I've got a big problem to solve here at Apple. I've got to turn this thing around and start delivering returns. And the way you deliver terrific returns is you find a really big problem to solve. So he said, I got to find a problem to solve. And the problem he found was the problem that the music industry had. And what is the problem they had? Piracy. People all over the world, maybe not the people in this room, but people all over the world were downloading music, one tune at a time, right? From Napster and other sites, and as a result, they weren't paying for their music. So who wasn't getting paid? The record companies weren't being paid. The artists, the composers, the people who wrote the music, nobody getting paid. Is there a problem? Those people have a big problem, right? Steve said, I think Apple could have a solution, at least a part of a solution to that problem. So what did he do? Rather than just looking inside at his idea, he said, has anybody done anything like this before? Turned out a couple companies had. A company called Sony, we all know that company. They had a product that had done really well, called the Walkman. They'd sold 300 million Walkman around the world. Is there demand for a portable music device? Pretty clear answer, right? A lot of people are buying Walkmans. He also said, how many Napster users are there? 26 million, and there are lots of other sites like Napster. Is there demand for music from the internet, one song at a time? Clear answer?
Yes.
Yeah, there is. Okay, so he learned a lot from some companies that had gone before. But there were two key issues that Randy and I call leaps of faith. A leap of faith is something you believe is true about your venture, but actually you don't have any evidence that you're right. And it's a crucial issue that if you're wrong, you're not going to have a business. But if you're right, then plan A is at least on track. So, what are the crucial leaps of faith for me? There are two. One is, can I get the music industry to play along? Because if the music industry won't play along with my solution and we get sued, then we're not going to have a business. So how do you test that one? He said, well, let's see. I think I'll call some musicians. So we called a guy named Don Henley. Don is the drummer for the rock group The Eagles. You know that group. And he said, Don, I'm Steve Jobs. I understand you have a little problem. You're not getting paid. I think I have a solution. We're going to do this iTunes store. Could we have your library to put on our digital store? Don Henley said, sure, we'd love to do that. Called some other musicians, same answer. And then who does he call, of course? The record companies. I understand you have a problem. I'm Steve Jobs. I think I have part of a solution to your problem. And by the way, I've already talked to your musicians, and they like my solution. Will you play ball? And the record industry said, yeah. But there was another problem, another question, another leap of faith that was a really tough one. We know people will download music one tune at a time. What we don't know is if they will pay for at least some of the music on their iPod, right? So, question for you guys, how many of you have paid for all of what's on your iPod? No hands go up, right? How many have paid for at least some of what's on the iPod? Yeah, a few of us have done that, right? So the question was, will people pay for at least some of the music? And there's only one way to know the answer to that question. You have to launch the site. You could do market research, but people, what they tell you isn't what they will do. So they launched the site, and on day one, do you know how many tunes they sold? 1 million tunes. Day one. Would that be a good first day for your new venture? That'd be pretty good, right? First day, 1 million units sold. First year, 7 million sold. So, that's the process. Let me talk briefly about each of these 5 elements in a business model. And the first element I want to talk about is the revenue model. And I want to tell the story of 2 guys in the UK who wanted to build a fishing business. And they said, well, let's see. If you want to be in the fishing business, you have to have a boat, because the fish are out in the water. So they said, okay, we don't have enough money for a boat, but we do have enough money for just the hull of the boat, okay? So we'll buy a hull, and then we'll build out the rest of the boat. And when it's ready, we'll launch the boat, we'll make some money from fishing, then we'll buy another boat, and over time we'll grow a nice fishing business because we want to be in that business. So they bought a hull, they fitted out the hull, it was almost done, then somebody came up to them and said, "That's a really nice boat. Could I buy your boat?" Partner A said to partner B, "I don't know if we want to sell a boat because our plan is to go fishing, right? We don't want to sell a boat." Partner B said, "Well, tell you what, if we could get a really good price for the boat, let's sell the boat because then we could buy 2 hulls. And then we could fit those out, we launch even bigger, and we build a fishing business faster." So they asked for a really high price, they got the price, and they sold the boat. They bought 2 hulls, fitted out the second hull and the third hull, and just about finished, ready to launch, and what do you think happens again? Really nice boats. Can I buy those 2 boats? True story. Partner A says to partner B, "If you don't quit selling the boats, we're never going to get into business." The name of that company is Princess Maritime. They make yachts. Some of the most luxurious yachts in the world today. They've gotten really good at building boats. They have yet to go fishing. So sometimes the revenue doesn't come the way we think it's going to come. It comes from a different customer, it comes from a different product. We don't actually know how it's going to work, but you can't learn how it works unless you get into the market and find out. So that's the revenue model. Gross margin model, this is one of the stories where Plan A is actually working really well. A company called Zynga. How many of you have played any of Zynga's games? A bunch of you, right? It's an online multiplayer game. Which game do you like best?
I don't remember if I saw that logo.
You've seen the logo. Okay, so they have these games you can play. And do you have to pay to play the game?
No.
No, it's free, right? You can play for free. And one of I think their most popular game is called Farmville. So you can be a farmer online. I don't know why you want to be a farmer online. You know, whatever floats your boat, right? You can be a farmer. And if you're going to be a farmer, you have to have some land to farm. And you might need some tractors and better seeds and buy more cattle and all this stuff, right? And guess what? You can play the game for free, but if you want more land, you have to pay for more land. Or if you want one more tractor, you pay real money for a tractor. Question, what does it cost Zynga to sell you the tractor? Nothing, right? It's just a virtual tractor. You know, it's just an image that shows up on your screen. But you pay for it, right? So the gross margin model said, what's the percentage of gross margin? 100%. Would you like to be in a business with 100% gross margins? These guys are. Okay? Fantastic gross margin.